From retro to next gen, we've got it all. I'm George, a Gen X grown-up, and this is Bit by Bit. Here's a fun, nostalgic bit from our friends over at WGRD.com, 97.9 on your dial. They want to talk about a long-forgotten game, certainly forgotten by me, the Ford simulator for the Atari 2600. They want to know if we remember it. I sure as hell didn't. I don't think I'd even heard of this, but they go through that. I guess this was back in 1987. Ford Motor Company decided to make learning and advertising cool by creating the Ford simulator for the Atari 2600. Well, we know that advertising in video games has been a long-running kind of joke in the industry. We've got things like Cool Spot, and I think Avoid the Noid was another game. Anyway, Ford apparently threw their hat into the mix. This was so cool. You could drive 16 different car models. You could look at 29 customizable car models and then computer your monthly payments to estimate how much that car would cost in real life. Boy, they really put it all in on this little cartridge for the 2600. That would have been freaking awesome. I don't know what kid my age would have been able to afford a Ford Bronco, say, or a Cougar or a Mustang, but man, what an awesome way to get you into the Ford family, I suppose, other than playing a Ford. So look at these graphics. I have to go find this now and emulate this somehow, and because I'm sure there's no way I'm going to be able to find a cartridge on it, but good Lord, this looks really fun. Imagine Ford on an Atari 2600. Here's a legal bit from our friends over at TechSpot.com. It turns out that Billy Mitchell actually won a lawsuit. However, it's not over the stuff that you might expect. Billy Mitchell has been embroiled in numerous lawsuits over the years. We've actually done some interviews with him here on the channel and on the podcast, and a few years ago when all this stuff was really coming out strong. But recently he just won a lawsuit in an Australian court against a YouTuber named Carl Jobst. Now, I've watched this YouTuber's videos, and he's very critical of Billy, and he definitely lights into him. But what this one is really mostly about is his allegation that Billy Mitchell caused another YouTuber to commit suicide. So, very, very scary, real-world kind of stuff. This has nothing to do... Well, I mean, it kind of has to do with the video games because that's where everything started. The other YouTuber was one of the YouTubers out there saying Billy Mitchell cheated and used MAME, blah, blah, blah. Billy Mitchell sued him. Now, Carl Jobst in this article talks about how Billy Mitchell supposedly won this $1 million lawsuit against that YouTuber, and it's that amount of money that caused the YouTuber to commit suicide because he was so depressed and despondent about the verdict. But it turns out that the judge in this new lawsuit against Carl Jobst said that's not at all true. Here's what really happened. He was just ordered to take down all the content and all that kind of stuff. So he awarded Billy Mitchell 350,000 Australian dollars, equals to about 230,000 in damages. And they go into a little bit more. I think one of the last lines is down here. Here's Carl Jobst's Twitter or X post about, he feels like that the judge just believed Billy's story, didn't listen to any of his, so on and so forth. And then way down here at the bottom, they said when he was asked outside the courtroom how he would take care of this thing, they said, how are you going to pay the damage? He said, with money. I mean, that's about the most defeated response I think I've ever heard after a lawsuit. But anyway, Billy Mitchell actually triumphed in a lawsuit to try and at least clear his name on this one front. Here's a new reading bit from our friends over at VideoGamesChronicle.com. The man who brought Tetris to the masses, Hank Rogers, has released a new memoir titled The Perfect Game, Tetra from Russia with Love. This book was just released on April Fool's Day 2025. I swear that's not a joke. He actually released it. It's available on Amazon right now. You can go check it out. This definitely is going to be an interesting book. I'll try and put a link to the book on the Amazon page down in the description for you, along with this article, which basically just kind of gives you an idea of what to expect in the book. It's got some annotations from Pajitnov, the man who invented Tetris. It's got a whole bunch of stories about the Game Boy and the Nintendo stuff, how he became friends with the leader of Nintendo. Here's some cool pictures of all of those guys together. I mean, it just seems like it would be a really fun read. We know the movie was super popular. It came out a couple of years ago, I guess, now at this point. But yeah, absolutely, I think you should check out this article and the book. And here's a heavy release announcement bit from our friends over at flickeringmyth.com. Evercade this week announced a whole bunch of stuff on their YouTube channel. They had a big live stream. I'm going to run through this really quickly. Gremlin Collection 2, Windjammers, Karnoff and Friends, and a whole bunch of Neo Geo stuff, including Pocket Neo Geos, everything. Let's go down here. We've got videos that you can link to from this article, which is really great. Here's a whole bunch of the titles that are going to be included. Let's see. This is on the, this is the preloaded stuff on the Neo Geo handheld. Alpha Mission 2, Blaze Star, Fatal Fury, Metal Slug, look, Shock Trooper, Soccer Brawl, Last Blade. Wow, a lot of good stuff on that. Looks like it's going to release around the $50, $60 mark, depending upon where you're located. There's obviously it supports cartridges. You can click in and play, so it'll expand on the 14 preloaded games on there, so you don't have to just be limited to them, because obviously it's $60. That's a little pricey compared to most handhelds these days that are being sold with hundreds or even thousands of games on them. But Evercade has a really great system going. People love that platform, and this is a big announcement from them this year. And here's a little legal bit from our friends over at GamesRadar.com. Turns out the people over at ZeniMax, the employees, the QA testers over there, have formed a union, and they're going for a second strike against Microsoft. Now, ZeniMax, you might not have heard of, but they're the parent company of Bethesda. So they're the guys who make Doom and Fallout, Elder Scrolls, whole bunch of games we know and love. And this press release comes out and says that 94% of the members have voted in favor of authorizing the strike. So basically what they're asking for is livable, fair wages, because they feel like their wages have not increased along with, the rate of inflation. They also want the right to work remotely, which in that industry makes total sense. You don't really have to be in the office to do QA work at a games company. We lived through the pandemic, people. We all worked remotely in one way or another in this kind of an industry, so why not continue to do it and allow people to live in places where their wages let them have a better life? Anyway, the article goes on to go into the details of what the workers are wanting, and Microsoft, of course, has released a statement saying, we've put out a proposal we think is fair, it's got compensation increases, but then here's probably the kicker, I would imagine, over this strike. They still want the hybrid model of 3 working days in the office. Well, that means you have to live wherever that office is, and that means you're also going to have to live in places that are probably going to be more expensive to live in, and so your money's not going to go as far, because I guarantee you Microsoft, with all of its trillions of dollars, is probably watching them pennies really closely. Down here at the bottom, there's a final quote from the senior QA tester who says, "We're not afraid to use our union power to ensure that we can keep making great games. All of us want to be working. We hope that Microsoft will allow us to do so with dignity and fairness to all by securing a first contract with our union." Vive la résistance! That's going to do it for the news making headlines in the gaming world right now. I am George, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, and I'll keep on bringing you the news bit by bit.